changing like a mechanic like trap is huge. Like that is. So, for anyone who hasn't yet read the the skill rework manifesto that we're about to break down, there have been some pretty interesting changes, which have been pretty exciting. And as you can see, I've prepared a couple of memes over. But yeah, we've got some pretty big changes to traps. I'm going to be breaking these down. And before we get into the full breakdown, I would like to quickly show you just one more resource. And it's mildly interesting how these things work, but you know. But saying that, Mr. SSF Trap Player, by the way, in the most recent build of the week, and I'm not saying you have me to thank, but you have me to thank, the trap nodes have moved into what looks like a more desirable situation. So maybe traps won't be shit this time next month. So I think the real fix is that all the content creators need to stop playing good builds. But if we only make content on the worst possible builds, they have to make them better. Otherwise, the Twitch section makes Path of Exile look like a bad game.
Don't worry.
Glowy boy strats. So let's get past all the silliness. What is actually happening? So they are going to do substantial reworks to the core trap mechanics, reworking how some of the traps work fundamentally, and in most cases removing and or reducing cooldowns, alongside rebalancing certain parts of the passive skill tree and adding some new support gems. So for anyone who's been following my trap activities in this league, I'm very, very excited, and this is exactly the kind of thing that I was really hoping to see from skill reworks. So thank you very much, GGG. This is beautiful. So, the version of Fire Trap we're experimenting with no longer has a cooldown. So now you can spam Fire Trap, and you can use Fire Trap for clear and for single target, not being the awkward situation that I was being in my most recent trap character, where it's like, I want to use the skill, but I can't because I clear too quickly, and then I go to throw my trap, and it's on cooldown. So, yeah. They've also added a thing where it deals additional damage to burning enemies. So this has a very good synergy with Immolate, and you can get Immolate-style mods on Elder Rings. This is another huge improvement. So not only is it becoming more spammable, meaning it's substantially better for map clear, better for single target, it also has additional synergy with previous fire support gems, which is also good because it really helps the fire like elemental identity, which is something they have talked about in the past. So that is another huge thing. They're also making the burning ground be much more intense. So instead of it, you throw a trap, it does initial and then leaves the stuff on the floor. Instead you throw it, it does a big damage, and then you get very strong, like, bursty damage over time, if that sort of makes sense. This also has very good synergy with something like Cluster Trap. So you throw in, like, your 5 traps. This creates burning ground, proccing the Immolate style effect, proccing your Immolate, proccing any Immolate effects you have on Elder Rings, etc., and just quickly whittling everything down while also doing strong initial damage. So that's pretty cool. They're changing it from a level 1 to level 12 gem, which is a little bit On the last Bay class, I did a little ranting and raving about the lack of like really strong, impactful start skills, but level 12 is still pretty early, so, you know, that's fine. Bear Trap is also seeing quite a substantial rework. It looks like it's still having the cooldown. They haven't said they're removing it or reducing it, but it will now apply a debuff to the enemy, increasing the damage they take from traps and mines, which is pretty interesting. So they're trying to turn it into like a Frostbomb style effect, where if you're playing a trapper or a mine character, you basically want to use Bear Trap just because it will give you more boss damage. It will also apply a slow after the initial root. This is very interesting. So I've recently been experimenting a lot with Cremation Trap. Cremation Trap does very good damage. Very, very good single target damage. Cremation Trap has pretty good strength with stuff like Immolate. This new Fire Trap identity makes sense. Very good cross synergy with that Cremation setup. The main weakness you have with Cremation Trap is if the boss is very mobile, then they move out of your Cremation and they don't get instantly whittled down. Now, whenever I was playing that build, people would joke, dude, you need to use a Bear Trap So you bear trap the boss in place, so they're stuck in the cremation. And it was kind of memey, right? But now, this looks like really good. So you set up your cremation cluster, you have all your volcanoes, bear trap, and you can like pre-lay traps before you aggro the boss. So you like cast Desecrate, proccing your Arcane Surge, throw 3 cremation traps, and a bear trap. Step forward 1, the boss aggroes, gets instantly rooted in place, taking more damage from the cremation traps that trigger. It sounds pretty juicy. One thing though, trap trigger AoE needs to be substantially buffed for bear trap to become a serious thing. There isn't like a support gem which increases trap trigger AoE, so you can only really get trap trigger AoE from the skill tree, and they're making the trap trigger AoE nodes feel slightly more efficient, but the main ones being, currently obviously this is all subject to change, this cluster which also gives trap throwing speed, and then also this cluster down here which we've seen looks like is moving up here, and it also looks like they're adding a cluster over here. If I could say one thing, GG, buff base trap AoE, it got gutted pretty hard indirectly. Also, since we're expecting probably quite substantial reworks to Saboteur, add a lot more trap trigger AoE, and change chain reaction to be more consistent. If you do all of those things alongside these changes, hype as... oh. These changes are great, but trap trigger AoE and a little bit of trap throwing speed on top, and suddenly we have like reinvented the wheel, and everyone will be like, Tarke, the trap messiah. Oh, teach me your ways, senpai. So yeah, lightning trap is also having its cooldown removed. So much like fire trap will be your like spammable clear. So do you want to do an AoE setup, more immolate focus? Go fire trap. Do you want to go more shock focused? And also they're buffing the base crit. Very good lightning trap at a very weak 5% base crit. Made it feel quite awkward. And it apparently also gains a large increase to critical strike chance against shock enemies. So this is also pretty interesting. They haven't said what they're going to do about ice trap, but they've taken fire trap and centered it much more around bonuses against burning enemies. Lightning trap is now much more powerful against shocked enemies. So I'm assuming ice trap will have a similar thing where it's more powerful against frozen or chilled enemies. So again, that's really cool. So not only are you saying, hey, we've got these old skills and we're making them feel better, they're also injecting identity into them. And you then have this potentially interesting thing of when you get into the tri-elemental trappers, where you then start stacking all these effects on top of each other. So that's very cool. They're also saying, we're making these changes while also working on a new trap-specific support gem that should synergize well with lightning trap. And hopefully all the other traps, but yeah. The new trap-specific support gem will give you a chance to generate both power and frenzy charges when your traps are triggered. They don't say triggered by an enemy, so that means it has good synergy with chain reaction, so that's nice. And you'll also gain crit multi for each power charge and throwing speed for frenzy charges. As I was saying just a second ago, trap throwing speed is a big thing which was missing. Now, some people were like, but why do you need this? You can already get frenzy charges on the tree. You can already get power charges on the tree. Those nodes will probably change. Those clusters will probably change. And by removing the tree location, that is actually huge for opening up builds. People who watch my stream know that I've been wanting to play a shrapnel shot style trapper a lot. The problem you have is that you kind of want to go crit because crit is pretty good. So you have to get blast cascade to get the power charge generation. So any like trapper tree you want to make has to come up here and has to take blast cascade. Now you kind of have to take hasty reconstruction for the cooldown recovery, but they're removing how that works as well. So if potentially you no longer need to be in the top half of the tree, then the whole thing of doing like bow-based trappers become much, much more hardcore viable. So suddenly you're no longer chained to this top section of the tree. And to be honest, traps and mines are really the only builds these days which feel so trapped into one location. Obviously, bow builds have a similar problem with feeling like they're just locked into this bottom corner, but you see the odd, Ellie Overload bow build, which goes pure up this way and skips this bottom section. So having a little bit more flexibility when it comes to traps is very huge. One thing I will say, clever construction feels a little bit awkward, a little bit underwhelming currently. Um, Previously, this used to be one of the main things you would rush as a trapper, because it gives you your traps cannot be damaged for 5 seconds after being thrown. A few patches ago, I believe around 3.0, they changed the way that traps work, so that when you throw a trap, it actually has like this brief grace window where it doesn't instantly get destroyed. So in most cases, you don't really need clever construction. Clever construction is still nice for the case of pre-laying traps, but maybe give a little bit more spice to this node. Obviously, we're seeing a lot of the trap nodes change. That'd be another thing I'd maybe suggest to GGG to slightly rethink a little bit. More trap trigger AoE in as many places as possible. More trap throwing speed in as many places as possible. And I would also say Sunblast Belt could do with a little bit more identity. Since the rework from traps lasting 16 to 4 seconds, while Sunblast Belt does still help non-saboteurs from triggering their traps faster, it does feel like it could do with a little bit more flavor, considering there are so few trap uniques. To have this one very iconic trap unique in the game and then not feel that great for saboteurs anyway. If they could just put a little bit more spice, even if you just like add trap throwing speed. Adding trap throwing speed is huge. For people who go, Tarke, why do you keep saying trap throwing speed? Imagine you were playing a spellcaster and there were only like 2 cast speed nodes on the tree and you couldn't support your main skill with fast casting or spell echo. Also, the trap and mind damage support gem reduces your trap throwing speed. Please, GGG, remove that. No other gem is like, hey, do you want to play your build? Yes. Slower casting. It feels terrible. Take that off. Feels good, man. So excited though. This really is amazing. So they're doing very big reworks, the past skill tree, etc., etc., etc. They've also said there's going to be some new traps they're introducing. These could be a chaos-based trap, since, you know, if they like making chaos-based skills. We already have a fire, lightning, and cold one. We already have a bear trap now being like a slowing thing. So the only real thing missing at this point would be some kind of chaos-themed, or going for a another like pure physical trap, other than bear traps, since this seems to be very much stuck in the identity of core single target skill, so they might want like then an AoE fizz option. And they're also potentially messing with the trap limit. So there are a few cases on the skill tree which increases the amount of traps you have, and the reason why increasing the trap limit is important. There are a few additional sources where you can throw multiple traps at once. They're clearly trying to build this identity, especially with Fire Trap, of triggering as many traps as possible. So with no cooldown, and you have, say, Cluster Trap on your build, and you throw like 5 traps at once, if you can only have a maximum of 6 traps out, you could be in this situation. If you have too much trap throwing speed, you could be constantly throwing traps which are despawning the previous set of traps before they properly arm. So that is something which needs slightly tweaking. And also, finally, maybe look at trap arming speed. And while we're on the topic, mine arming speed could also do with a base increase. But yes, I'm Tarky. I'm very excited. This is exactly the kind of thing that I want to be seeing from skill reworks. And also, if anyone would like their build to be reworked in 3.3, and you feel like it isn't getting enough attention, I'll see what I can do. Drop me a little message down below, maybe a little Amazon Prime, by the way. But yes, I'm Tarky. Trapped, by the way. Have a good day. Bye-bye.